Hello, everybody, and welcome back to my continuation in my book reading of Stephen King's Cell. It's been a while since I continued with it because I was reading the other books as well. But yeah, today I'm going to continue with it. And yeah, welcome back. And let's continue. Here we go. Pixie Dark as a partially wiped hard drive? It was horrible, but it felt like the stone truth. I majored in English, but as a young man, I read a great deal of psychology, the head told me. I began with Freud, of course. Everyone begins with Freud, then Jung, then Adler. I worked my way around the whole ball field from there, lurking behind all theories on how the mind works is a greater theory, Darwin's. In Freud's vocabulary, the idea of survival as a prime directive is expressed by the concept of the it, or the idea. In Jung's, by the rather grander idea of blood consciousness. Neither, man. I think I would argue with the idea that if all conscious thought, all memory, all ratiocination, something like that, ability were to be stripped from the human mind in a moment, what would remain? What would remain would be pure and terrible. He paused, looking around for a comment. None of them said anything. The head nodded as if satisfied and resumed. Although neither the Freudians or the Jungians come right out and see it, they strongly suggest that we may have a core, a single basic carrier wave, or, to use language with which Jordan is comfortable, a single line of written code which cannot be stripped. The PD, Jordan said. The prime directive. Yes, the head agreed. At bottom, you see, we are not Homo sapiens at all. Our core is madness. The prime directive is murder. What Darwin was too polite to say, my friends, is that we came to rule the earth not because we were the smartest or even the meanest, but because we have always been the craziest, most murderous MF in the jungle. And that is what the Pulse exposed 5 days ago. I refuse to believe that we were lunatics and murderers before we were anything else, Tom said. Christ, man, what about the Parthenon? What about Michelangelo's David? What about that plague on the moon that says we came in peace for all mankind? That plague is a plague or plague? Maybe plague, yeah. The plague also has Richard Nixon's name on it. Maybe plaque, yeah. It's probably plaque. Arde said dryly, a Quaker, but hardly a man of peace, Mr. McCord, Tom. I have no interest in handing down an indictment of mankind. If I did, I point out that for every Michelangelo, there's a Marquis de Sade. For every Gandhi, an Eichmann. For every Martin Luther King, an Osama bin Laden. Leave it at this. Man has come to dominate the planet thanks to two essential traits. One is intelligence. The other has been absolute willingness to kill anyone and anything that gets in his way. He leaned forward, surveying them with his bright eyes. Mankind's intelligence finally trumped mankind's killer instinct, and reason came to rule over mankind's maddest impulses. That too was survival, and I believe the final showdown between the two may have come in October of 1963 over a handful of missiles in Cuba. But that is a discussion for another day. The fact is, most of us have sublimated the worst in us, until the pulse came along and stripped away everything that red core. Someone let the Tasmanian devil out of his cage, Alice murmured. Who? That need no concern us either, the head replied. I suspect that no idea of what they are doing or how much they were doing. Based upon what we must have hurried experiments over a few years, perhaps even months, they may have thought they would unleash a destructive storm of terrorism. Instead, they unleashed a tsunami of untold violence. And it's mutating. Horrible as the current days may now seem, we may later view them as a lull between one storm and the next. These days may also be our only chance to make a difference. What do you mean, mutating? Clay asked, but the head didn't answer. Instead, he turned to 12-year-old Jordan. If you please, young man. Yes, well, Jordan paused to think. Your conscious mind only uses a tiny percentage of your brain's capacity. You guys know that, right? Yes, Tom said, a bit indulgently. So, I've read. Jordan nodded. Even when you add in all the other atomic functions they control, plus the subconscious stuff, dreams, blink, think, sex drive, all that jazz, our brain are barely ticking over. Holmes, you astound me, Tom said. Don't be a wise ass, Tom, Alice said, and Jordan gave her a decidedly starry-eyed smile. I'm not, Tom said. The kid is good. Indeed he is, the headmaster said dryly, or dryly, I guess. Jordan may have occasional problems with the King's English, but he did not get his scholarship from excelling at tiddlewinks. I have no idea what that is. He observed the boy's discomfort and gave Jordan's hair an affectionate scrub with his bony fingers. Continue, please. Well, Jordan struggled. Clay could see it, and then seemed to find his rhythm again. If your brain really was a hard drive, the can would be almost empty. He saw only Alice understood this. Put it this way, the info script would say something like 2% in use and 98% unavailable. No one has any real idea what that 98% is for, but there's plenty of potential there. Stroke victims for existence. For instance, they sometimes access previously dormant areas of their brains in order to walk and talk again. It's like their brains wire around the blighted area. The lights go on in a similar area of the brain, but on the other side. You study this stuff? Clay asked. It's a natural outgrowth of my interest in computers and cybernetics, Jordan said, shrugging. Also, I read a lot of cyberpunk science fiction. William Gibson, Bruce Sterling, John Shirley. Neil Stephenson? Alice asked. Jordan grinned radiantly. Neil Stephenson's a god. Back on message, the head chided it? But gently. Jordan shrugged. If you wipe a computer's hard drive, it can regenerate spontaneously, except maybe in a Greg Beer novel. He grinned again, but this time it was quick and Clay thought rather nervous. Part of it was Alice, who clearly knocked the kid out. People are different. But there's a huge leap between learning to walk away after a stroke and being able to power a bunch of boomboxes by telepathy, Tom said. A quantum leap. He looked around self-consciously as the word telepathy came out of his mouth, as if expecting them to laugh. No one did. Yeah, but a stroke victim, even someone who had a bad one, is light years different from what happened to people who were on their cells during the pulse, Jordan replied. Me and the head and I think that in addition to stripping people's brains all the way to that one usable line of code, the pulse also knocked something on. Something that's probably been sitting inside of all of us for millions of years, buried in that 98% of dormant hard drive. Clay's hand stole to the butt of the revolver as he picked it up off the floor in Beth Nickerson's kitchen. A trigger, he said. Jordan lit up. Yes, exactly. A trigger. It never could have happened without this, like total erasure on a grand scale. There are a lot of words I have never heard before, so my apologies if I'm saying them completely wrong. Because what's emerging, what's building up in those people out there, only there's no longer people. What's building up is, it's a single organism, the head interrupted. This is what we believe. Yeah, but more than just a flock, Jordan said. Because what they can do with the CD players may only be the start. Like a little kid learning to put his shoes on. Think about what they might be able to do in a week, or a month, or a year. You could be wrong, Tom said, but his voice was as dry as a breaking stick. He could also be right, Alice said. Oh, I'm sure he's right, the head put in. He sipped his spiked hot chocolate. Of course, I'm an old man, and my time is almost over in any case. I'll abide by any decision you make. A slight pause. The eyes flicked from Clay to Alice to Tom. As long as it's the right one, of course. And with this one, I'm gonna stop it here for this part of this book reading. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye bye.